Assalamu alaikum. Salam. Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Pete Bowyer. I am the Communications Director of the Global Humanitarian Forum for this 2009 forum, and I'd like to welcome you all here this evening. Just before we get this little press briefing going, I'd just like to say what we're going to do. Hopefully you all heard Mr. Annan's opening remarks and his closing remarks just a few minutes ago. So Mr. Annan is not going to make any set prepared statement here. We've also distributed a press release around the room. So maybe just after a few words of welcome from Mr. Annan, we will go into straight into questions. The one thing I would like to ask is that all questions remain focused directly on climate change, climate justice, and issues around the forum and this conference tonight. So, without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Kofi Annan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pete. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you to this press conference. And I see some familiar faces and some new ones, but I hope we will have a very useful exchange. This, as you know, is the second forum that we've held. The first one was last year, and we've really tried to focus on the human aspects of climate change, in effect trying to put the individual at the center of all that we should be concerned about. And I hope we've been able to get our message across, and I'm sure you will have lots of questions for me and for the forum. So I'm ready to take your questions. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Annan. If I could ask that if anybody wants to ask a question, if you could just raise your hand and state your name, the organization which you come from, and who you'd like to ask a question of. Mr. Annan is also joined by Walter Fust, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Global Humanitarian Forum. Thank you. Okay, I'll take the lady in the front to start with. Thank you.
Because, yeah, I represent Kuwait News Agency. I would like to ask you at the end, because you are the former UN Secretary General, there are certain pending issues that I have to ask you about, and since it's only climate change, I have to wait till the end.
Well, I think we'd perhaps like to take those issues outside of this room and maybe...
No, you can't with what's happening in the world. You can't.
No, but as he said, we are here to discuss the climate issue. Relax. It concerns you. It's all our problem. The climate issue is your problem too. In some ways, perhaps it's bigger than the issue you are concerned about. So let's go ahead. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Schuckman, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, David Schuckman from BBC News. During the course of some of the sessions I moderated here and conversations, it's clear that political realities are a major factor in the run-up to Copenhagen. I mean, clearly you're calling for this urgent action, and one can see why. But on the other hand, we know there's a recession. We know some of the political constraints, even on leaders who have just come into office talking very much about the need to act on climate change. I'm wondering what the realist in you can tell us about Copenhagen and the likely shape of a deal.
I'm not sure I want to get into the deal, but what I would want to say is that we have to look at the world in which we live and the challenges confronting us. I know there are those who believe that because of this financial crisis, we will not be able to tackle climate change. I think it is precisely because of the crisis we are in that we should try and take a broader view. If we were to decide to prioritize the challenges and the difficulties we face in the world because of whatever reason, where would you place the billion people who don't have enough to eat? Where do we place climate change? Where do we place the food shortages and high cost of food that can lead to instability? I think we need to really develop the political will. When I travel around the world and talk to people, there is anger. They are very angry. Confidence in leaders, corporate and political, is shaking, and we need to restore that trust. The question they ask me is a simple one. I mean, they are not economists. They are not Wall Street types. But they say, when I have a problem, when I can't pay my hospital bills, when I can't pay my child's school fees, when I can't get a job, the government tells me, sorry, we have no money. The budget is run out. Suddenly, Wall Street gets into trouble, and they find billions and trillions to bail them out and to stimulate them. Yes, I can tell them you need credit. Credit is like blood in the human body. Without credit, the economy doesn't work. But they don't see it that way. In fact, basically what they are saying is if the will is there, if the real political will is there, governments find a way to act. I also believe that as human beings, we are capable of tackling more than one issue at a time. And we should be able to take advantage of this crisis and tackle the problems that confront us and exploit this crisis to turn green. And of course, there are even those economists who will tell you that the greening of the economy will be as important as the Industrial Revolution. They may be right, they may be wrong, but there are lots of opportunities. Because if we think we are going to go back to the world that existed before the crisis, I think we are deluding ourselves. The world has changed, even on the economic front. The Chinese and the Asian tigers cannot sustain their model of export, manufacture, export, and save, both at the governmental level and the individual level. The US cannot maintain its model of import, consume, and get into debt. There has to be adjustments on both sides. So you're going to see lots of, and if we're going to do that, isn't it sensible for us to see how do we make this world better? How do we pool our efforts and work together to ensure that whatever we do is sustainable and we don't repeat the mistakes that we have made? I mean, we talk a lot about the markets. For a while, we thought the markets some thought the markets can produce a public goods. Of course they can't. And even Adam Smith, that they could. Adam Smith in his book published 250 years ago, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, stressed prudence, fairness, equity, and of course I would want to add, in today's world, solidarity and democratic accountability. And so, let's not use the economic crisis as an excuse for inaction. If they do not act now and were to say, wait for the next 5 years, first of all, what sort of state would we be? If we don't act now, the problem gets worse. And I think this is why a leader like Obama is tackling these issues on all fronts. You know, he say, you know, I can't get it past my majlis in Iran. We have to find a way of negotiating in a structured manner and not find a situation where each time you find yourself that you're dealing at different levels.